I had just finished a long day at work and was looking forward to the quiet evening ahead. The sun had already set, and the soft glow of streetlights bathed the neighborhood in a calming golden hue. I parked my car in the driveway, grabbed my bag and walked toward the front door with a sense of relief. There was nothing waiting for me except the comfort of home. But as I reached the door, I did something that would change everything. I glanced out the window expecting to see my car parked in its usual spot. But instead of the familiar sight of my old sedan, I was met with nothing, just an empty driveway. Confusion swept over me. My first thought was that maybe I had parked it wrong or that I had forgotten where I'd left it. But when I checked the street, the parking spaces were all full. Panic began to settle in. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus's number. He answered after a few rings, his voice warm and casual. "Hey babe. What's up?" he said, sounding like he hadn't just left me in a panic. "Marcus," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "where's my car?" There was a brief pause on the other end and then a sigh. It wasn't reassuring. "I sold it." I froze. "You what? You sold my car?" "Without telling me." He seemed unfazed. "Yeah, I needed the money to invest in my business. I figured it was just sitting there and this was a good opportunity. Don't worry, it's all going to pay off." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You sold my car to fund your business?" My voice was shaking now, the anger bubbling up as I tried to process what he was saying. "And you didn't think to talk to me about it first? You didn't think I might want to be involved in such a huge decision?" "I didn't think it was that big of a deal," Marcus replied, sounding defensive. "It's just a car, Lila. This is for our future." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "It's not just a car, Marcus. It's my car. It's mine. And you just sold it without asking me, without telling me." "I'm sorry," he said, but there was no real apology in his voice. "But this is important. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Just trust me." "I don't trust you," I snapped, my voice cracking. "I don't trust you anymore. This isn't about the car. It's about you thinking you can make decisions about my life without even consulting me." I hung up before he could respond, my hands trembling as I clutched the phone. I stood there in the doorway trying to process the shock. How could he do this? How could someone I loved and trusted make such a huge decision without me? My heart felt heavy and I knew deep down that this wasn't just about the car. It was about something much bigger. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about what Marcus had done. It wasn't just the betrayal of selling my car. It was the realization that he didn't see me as an equal partner in this relationship. He had made a decision, one that affected both of us, without even consulting me. It felt like I wasn't a priority to him anymore. I tried to talk to him, tried to understand his side, but every conversation left me feeling worse. He didn't seem to grasp the gravity of what he'd done. He kept saying it was for the good of our future, that I should trust him, but the more he said it, the more I felt like I was losing myself in this relationship. One night, after another failed conversation, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty space where my car used to be. Felt so powerless, like I was just going through the motions of this life, waiting for something to change. But deep down I knew it was me who had to change. I couldn't keep living like this, feeling invisible in my own relationship. I thought about what I could do, how I could reclaim some control over my own life. That's when the idea hit me. I wasn't going to just sit back and let him keep making decisions for me. I wasn't going to let him take away my sense of independence without a fight. The next day I went out and bought myself a new car. I didn't tell Marcus, he didn't deserve to know, not yet. I wanted to make a statement to show him that I was capable of taking care of myself, that I didn't need him to make all the decisions. I chose a car I had always dreamed of, something sleek and modern, something that would make me feel powerful again. When I drove it home, I parked it in the driveway right where my old car used to be. I didn't send him a text or call him. I wanted him to see it for himself, to realize what he had done. Maybe then he'd understand just how much he had hurt me. Later that night I waited for him to come home. When he pulled into the driveway, I could see the shock on his face as he stared at the new car. "What is this?" he asked, stepping out of his car. "It's my new car," I said calmly, crossing my arms. "I bought it with my own money." "You bought a new car?" His voice was filled with disbelief. "You didn't even tell me you were thinking about it." "No," I said, "because you didn't tell me you were selling mine." He stood there, speechless for a moment before his expression turned defensive. "You're being dramatic. It's just a car, Lila. You're overreacting." It's not just a car, Marcus, I replied, my voice steady. It's about trust. It's about respect. You didn't respect me when you sold my car without asking me. And now, I'm showing you that I don't need you to make decisions for me. The words hung in the air between us, and for the first time in days I felt like I had a sense of control again. I wasn't just a bystander in my own life. I was taking charge. This was only the beginning, though. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this feeling of betrayal without making it clear how deeply it had affected me. But I also knew that Marcus wasn't going to understand right away. This wasn't going to be an easy fix. For now I had my new car. But more importantly, I had my sense of self back. The days after I bought the new car were tense. Marcus barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was always with a sense of defensiveness that only made the divide between us even wider. I could tell he was struggling to wrap his head around my actions. He had expected me to be upset, yes, but not to take such drastic steps. He thought I would forgive him quickly. But I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. Every night we would sit in silence, the space between us growing more uncomfortable. He'd occasionally try to start a conversation, but his words felt hollow, like he was saying what he thought I wanted to hear, not what he truly meant. I didn't trust him anymore, and no amount of forced apologies could change that. It wasn't just the car. It was everything. I thought about the last few months, how he'd made decisions about our future without consulting me, how he'd made promises he couldn't keep, how he'd brushed aside my feelings when I needed him the most. I was tired of being the one who always tried to make it work, who always compromised. One evening, after yet another awkward dinner, I decided it was time to lay it all on the table. I couldn't keep ignoring the fact that our relationship had become a series of compromises, and I wasn't sure how much more I could give. Marcus, I said quietly as we sat in the living room, the silence between us thick and suffocating. We need to talk. He looked up from his phone, surprised by the seriousness in my tone. What about? About everything, I replied, my voice firm. About the car. About us. About how you've been treating me. He frowned, setting his phone down. Lila, I've apologized. I don't understand why you're still holding on to this. I took a deep breath. It's not just about the car. It's about how you think you can make decisions for us without even consulting me. You've been doing it for months, Marcus. And I've been letting you. But I can't let you do this anymore. I don't feel like I'm your partner anymore. I feel like I'm just here to support you, to help you with your plans while you take over everything. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. I thought I was doing what's best for us. Doing what's best for us? I repeated, incredulous. You sold my car without asking me, Marcus. You didn't think that maybe I had plans for that money? You didn't think about what I wanted? You just assumed that what's best for you is best for both of us. He stared at the floor, unsure of what to say next. I didn't think of it like that. Exactly, I said, standing up and pacing the room. That's the problem. You never think of it like that. You think that whatever you decide is what's best for us. But that's not how a partnership works. A relationship is about communication. It's about making decisions together. And I don't feel like we're doing that anymore. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his expression. I didn't realize how much this was bothering you. I thought I was doing the right thing. And that's the problem, I said, my voice softer now. You didn't realize. You didn't even ask. You just assumed. And now I'm sitting here questioning everything about us. I don't know if I can keep going like this. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret. What do you mean? Are you saying you want to break up? I hesitated. The word break up hadn't crossed my mind until that moment, but as soon as he said it, I realized how much it had been weighing on my heart. I don't know, Marcus. I don't know if I can keep being with someone who doesn't see me as an equal, someone who doesn't respect my boundaries. This isn't just about one mistake. It's about a pattern of behavior. And I don't think I can keep ignoring it. He seemed to shrink in on himself at my words. It was clear he had never seen me like this, strong, resolute, unwilling to bend. I wasn't the same person I was before he sold my car. I had changed, and I wasn't sure if I could go back. I'm sorry, he said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you, Lila. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd understand. I don't think you understand what I need from you, Marcus, I replied, my voice steady. I need respect. I need partnership. I need to feel like I matter just as much as your business, just as much as your plans. There was a long silence between us, and for the first time, I wondered if he truly understood the weight of what I was saying. But I also knew that I couldn't make him change. That had to come from him. I need time, I said finally, breaking the silence. I can't keep living like this. I need space to think. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. The next few days were filled with tension. Marcus tried to talk to me, tried to explain himself, but I wasn't ready to hear it. I needed time to process everything, to figure out if I could forgive him, if I could rebuild the trust that had been shattered. I spent the next week alone doing things for myself. I took long walks, went out with friends, and spent time focusing on what I wanted, not what Marcus wanted. It was a strange feeling, having time to myself again, time to figure out who I was outside of this relationship. But even as I found solace in my own company, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had broken between us. The more space I got, the more I realized that maybe this relationship wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe I had been so focused on trying to make it work that I had ignored the signs that we were drifting apart. It wasn't until a week later that Marcus came to me, his face serious. "Lila," he began, his voice low. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About the car, about everything. And I want to make it right. I know I messed up. I'm sorry." I looked at him, unsure of what to say. "Marcus, I need more than just an apology. I need you to show me that you understand what you did. I need you to prove that you can be the partner I need, the partner who respects me and my decisions." He nodded, his expression earnest. "I want to be that partner for you, Lila. I do. I just didn't realize how much I was taking you for granted. I promise I'll do better." I didn't know if I believed him. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe he was finally starting to understand. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. But only time would tell. The weeks following that conversation with Marcus were a blur of uncertainty. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure where our relationship was headed. Marcus was doing everything he could to show me he was committed to making things right, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been permanently broken. He started helping around the house more, taking on responsibilities that he'd previously ignored. He apologized again and again, but every time he said the words, I couldn't help but wonder if they were just empty promises. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but trust wasn't something that could be restored with a few kind gestures. It took time, and even then I wasn't sure if it was something we could rebuild. I still found myself staring at the new car in the driveway, remembering the day I bought it, the moment I'd decided to take control of my life again. It was a symbol of my independence, of my refusal to let him or anyone else make decisions for me. But there was something else it represented now, a line in the sand. Could I really go back to the way things were before? Could I let go of the hurt? Marcus tried to make things up to me in small ways. He'd pick up dinner when I didn't feel like cooking, or surprise me with flowers when I was having a rough day. But each gesture felt like a token, something he was doing to try and make up for the fact that he had sold my car without asking. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make me forget how much I felt betrayed. One night I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone when Marcus came in, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. "Lila," he said softly, sitting beside me. "We need to talk." I glanced up at him, my heart racing. His tone was different. More vulnerable, less defensive. "What's wrong?" "I've been thinking," he started, taking a deep breath. "I don't think I fully understood what I was doing when I sold your car. I thought I was doing something good for the business, but I see now that I was just thinking about myself. And that's not fair to you." I looked at him, waiting for him to continue. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, and I know I've been trying to make up for it, but I don't think I've really shown you how much I care about you, how much I respect you. I've been so caught up in my own plans that I forgot that we're supposed to be a team." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Marcus, I need more than just words. I need actions. I need to see that you truly understand how much you've hurt me. Because right now I don't feel like you do." He nodded, his face filled with regret. "I get it now. I do. I've been selfish. And I want to change. I don't want to lose you over something I can fix." I looked at him for a long moment, trying to gauge the sincerity in his eyes. His words were genuine, I could see that, but the question remained. Was it enough? Was he truly capable of changing? Or was this just another round of empty promises? "I don't know, Marcus," I said finally, my voice softer. "I want to believe you, I do. But I've been hurt so many times by your actions, and I don't know if I can just move past all of that overnight. I understand, he said. I'm not asking you to forgive me immediately. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the partner you deserve. I sat in silence, the weight of his words settling in. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know if I could forgive him or if I could ever feel the same way about him again. But I knew one thing: I wasn't ready to give up on us yet. I wasn't ready to walk away without seeing if we could make it work. I need time, I said, my voice steady. I need time to see if you're really going to change. And I need time to figure out if I can trust you again. But I'm not ready to call it quits. Not yet. He nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. Take all the time you need. I'll be here waiting, doing whatever it takes to prove to you that I can change. The days that followed were filled with small, everyday changes. Marcus kept his promise to be more present, more considerate, but it wasn't always easy. We had our fair share of arguments, moments where it felt like the walls between us were closing in again. But there were also moments of connection. Small moments that made me remember why I had fallen in love with him in the first place. One weekend, after a particularly stressful week, Marcus surprised me with a picnic in the park. He'd packed all my favorite foods and set up a blanket under a tree, just the two of us. It wasn't a grand gesture or an attempt to make up for everything that had happened, but it was sincere. It was him trying to show me that he cared in the only way he knew how. As we sat there eating and talking, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. Maybe there was a chance for us after all. But even as I felt that flicker of hope, there was still the nagging thought in the back of my mind. Would I ever truly be able to trust him again? Would I ever be able to forget the betrayal I had felt when he sold my car without even asking me? A week later, we had another conversation, this time one that felt different. We were sitting at the kitchen table sipping coffee when Marcus spoke up. Lila, he began, his tone serious, I know I've made a lot of mistakes. And I know that it's going to take time for you to heal from everything I've done. But I want you to know that I'm committed to this. I'm committed to you, and I'm committed to making this work. I looked at him, trying to gauge his sincerity. What are you saying, Marcus? I'm saying that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you that I can be the partner you need. I don't want to lose you, Lila. I can't imagine my life without you. I felt my heart soften at his words. Maybe, just maybe, he was being sincere. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally understanding what it meant to be a partner. I want to believe you, I said quietly, but I need to see it. I need to see that you're willing to put us first. That you're willing to make decisions together, not just for your business or your future, but for us. I will, he said, his voice unwavering. I promise you I will. I didn't know what the future held for us, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. Maybe we weren't perfect. Maybe we had a long way to go. But we were both willing to try. And that, I realized, was all I could ask for. As the weeks passed, I kept my distance while also trying to remain open to Marcus's efforts to make amends. It was a delicate balancing act. Part of me wanted to believe that things could return to the way they were before the car incident, but another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us. Our relationship had been tested, and I wasn't sure how much more it could handle. Marcus, on the other hand, seemed determined to prove himself. He was more involved than ever in our daily lives, making sure I knew how much he appreciated me. He'd leave small notes for me telling me how much he loved me or how he was thinking of me during his workday. Those little acts of kindness would have felt like the world to me once, but now they felt like band-aids on a wound that wasn't yet fully healed. And yet, despite all the efforts, there were moments when the old frustrations resurfaced. I found myself catching Marcus in small lies or noticing that he was reverting to old habits, thinking of solutions for us without consulting me, making decisions about his business that affected our lives without asking for my input. It was almost as though he'd forgotten the lessons we'd learned in the past few weeks. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, I noticed he was on his phone more than usual. I tried to ignore it at first, but it was obvious that something was off. He kept glancing at the screen, tapping away at something and barely making eye contact. Marcus? I asked, my voice laced with caution. Is everything okay? He looked up, startled, as if he hadn't realized I was paying attention. Yeah, everything's fine. Just work stuff. I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. You've been on your phone a lot lately. Is there something you need to tell me? He sighed, putting the phone down and rubbing his temples. I'm sorry, Lila. It's just that things are getting a little hectic with the business. I've been trying to juggle everything and I guess I've been distracted. I studied him for a moment, taking in his weary expression. He seemed genuine, but I knew I couldn't just ignore the old patterns. Marcus, I get that your business is important, but we need to talk. We need to communicate. I'm not just here to be your sounding board or the person who picks up the pieces when things go wrong. I need you to be present in every aspect of our relationship. I know, he said quietly. I've been trying. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm letting you down. I leaned forward, looking him in the eyes. You're not just letting me down by being distracted, Marcus. You're letting us down. We're supposed to be a team. You can't just keep pulling away when things get tough. There was a heavy silence between us. I could see the guilt in his eyes, but I also saw something else. Resignation. Like he didn't know how to fix it. And I wasn't sure I knew either. The tension continued to simmer beneath the surface, and I found myself becoming more and more frustrated. It wasn't that Marcus wasn't trying. It was that his efforts felt superficial. He was checking the boxes of what he thought I needed, but he wasn't really seeing me. He wasn't really understanding the depth of the problem. I needed more than just acts of service or words of affirmation. I needed someone who could meet me where I was, who could face the hard truths with me instead of offering temporary solutions. And so, I decided to do something I had been avoiding. I needed to step back and gain some clarity. I needed to make sure that this wasn't just me clinging to something that had already slipped away. I booked a solo weekend getaway, a trip I'd been wanting to take for months but never had the time for. I told Marcus I was going, and while he was disappointed, he understood. At least I hoped he did. The weekend away was a revelation. It wasn't just about getting away from Marcus. It was about getting away from the constant tension and uncertainty that had been weighing on me. I spent my time hiking through the woods, meditating by a quiet lake, and just being alone with my thoughts. It was exactly what I needed to clear my head, to remember who I was before all this drama consumed me. By the end of the weekend, I had come to a decision. I wasn't ready to walk away from Marcus, but I also wasn't willing to keep sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of a relationship that wasn't meeting my needs. If we were going to make it work, I needed to see real change. I needed him to show me that he was willing to put us first, even when things got difficult. When I returned home, Marcus was waiting for me. He looked nervous, unsure of what to expect. And that's when I realized he was just as unsure about the future as I was. Lila, he said, his voice soft but filled with anxiety. I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us. And I realize that I've been taking you for granted. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off my chest. Marcus, I'm not sure I can keep doing this unless I see real change. I need you to show me that I'm a priority, that this relationship is a priority. I need to see that you understand what I need, not just what you want. I do understand, he said, his voice trembling. I'm ready to prove it. I don't want to lose you, Lila. I love you. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe he meant it. But I couldn't be certain yet. There was still a lot of work to do. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. A few weeks later, Marcus and I began seeing a couples therapist. It was something I had suggested, and at first Marcus was hesitant. He didn't think we needed therapy. After all, he was trying so hard to show me how much he cared. But I insisted. The sessions weren't easy. We dug into the hard stuff. Past grievances, old habits, communication issues. But slowly we started to learn how to navigate our differences. We started to learn how to communicate better, how to listen with empathy, how to compromise without feeling like we were losing ourselves. It wasn't a quick fix, but it was progress. In those months that followed, things between Marcus and me began to stabilize. It wasn't perfect, but we were both committed to making it work. I could see the change in him and I could feel the change in myself. We had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while I felt like maybe we had a chance. I knew that our relationship would always be a work in progress. But the car incident, the betrayal, it had become part of our story, a chapter we had learned from. And I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was willing to find out. Months passed since that weekend getaway where I had made the decision to stay in the relationship. Marcus and I were finding our way back to each other, and with each passing day the weight of the past seemed to lift just a little bit more. We had our ups and downs as all couples do, but it felt different now. There was a sense of renewed hope, a commitment to not just work through our issues, but to thrive in the process. We continued our therapy sessions, and while at first they felt awkward, over time, They became a space where we could truly open up to each other. Marcus, for the first time, wasn't just apologizing for his actions, he was actively trying to understand my feelings. And I was doing the same. We stopped seeing therapy as a last resort and began to view it as a tool to strengthen our relationship. One evening, as we sat together on the couch after yet another therapy session, Marcus turned to me, a slight nervousness in his eyes. "Lila," he said, his voice soft but serious. "I know we've come a long way, but I still have something I want to say. Something I should have said a long time ago." I looked at him, curiosity peaking. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, his hand reaching for mine. "I'm sorry. For everything. For the car, for all the times I didn't listen to you, for taking your trust for granted. I know I can't erase what happened, but I need you to know that I see you now. I see you for everything you are. And I love you." The words hung in the air between us, filling the space with sincerity. His eyes were filled with a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. It was raw, honest. And for the first time I felt the full weight of his apology, not just in his words, but in his actions over the past few months. "I know," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know, Marcus. And I've seen it too. I've seen the effort you've put in. I've seen the change. And I want to move forward with you to build something stronger together. But we both have to keep working at it. We can't stop now." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "I'm ready. I'm all in, Lila. I don't want to lose you." I smiled gently, leaning in to kiss him on the cheek. "I'm all in too." As time went on, our relationship felt stronger than ever. Not because everything was perfect, but because we had learned how to face challenges together. We didn't shy away from the tough conversations anymore. We spoke openly and honestly about our fears, our desires, our goals. And most importantly, we listened. We also rebuilt the trust that had been broken. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments when I felt unsure, but we were building something real, something tangible. The car incident, while never forgotten, became a part of our story that we could reflect on, a reminder of how far we had come. One afternoon, as we were sitting outside enjoying a quiet moment, Marcus turned to me with a mischievous smile. "You know," he said, "I'm thinking we should plan a road trip. Just the two of us." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A road trip? Where?" "I don't know yet," he replied, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Somewhere new. Somewhere we can create new memories. Just us, no distractions. A fresh start." I thought about it for a moment. It sounded perfect. A chance to break away from everything and just focus on each other. "I like that idea," I said finally, smiling back at him. "Let's do it." In the months that followed, we took that road trip. Just the two of us, exploring new places and rediscovering the joy of each other's company. It wasn't just about the destination. It was about the journey, about the way we learned to support each other, laugh together, and make new memories. It was a symbol of our new beginning, one that was built on trust, communication, and love. We also started talking about the future more seriously. We discussed our dreams, what we wanted for our careers, and what kind of life we hoped to build together. The conversations were no longer filled with tension or uncertainty. They were filled with excitement and possibility. We were dreaming together, planning together, and most importantly, we were doing it as a team. As I sat in the driver's seat of my new car one afternoon, I realized something. It wasn't just the car that had changed, it was everything. I wasn't the same person I had been before, and neither was Marcus. We had both grown, both learned from our mistakes, and both made a conscious decision to move forward. The past was still there, lingering in the background, but it didn't define us anymore. We were no longer the couple who had been torn apart by betrayal. We were the couple who had fought to rebuild, to come back stronger. In that moment, I understood that the journey had been worth it. Not because it had been easy, but because it had taught us the value of commitment, of listening, and of never taking each other for granted. We weren't perfect, but we were perfect for each other. And that, I realized, was all that mattered. We moved forward, hand in hand, into the unknown. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them together. Because we had already survived the hardest part. And if we could make it through that, there was nothing we couldn't handle.